Artivism is executive produced by ArtUp, hosted by Linda Steele, produced, directed, and distributed by Kazukian. This is Artivism, and we're talking to Mary E. Mitchell. Hello, Mary E. Mitchell.
Hello, Miss Linda Steele. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
Marvelous.
I want you to introduce yourself and tell our listeners a little bit about who Mary E. Mitchell is.
Mary E. Mitchell was born August 25th, 1936, Mary Elizabeth Jones as a baby. I was born on Marshall Neal Street in the historic Orange Mound community. Orange Mound is historic in the sense that it was founded in 1890 exclusively for African Americans to buy land, build houses, and become ownerships 25 years of post-slavery. This particular historical significance occurred at a time when the Native Americans had been forced off this land through politics. But I am from this great community. It's one of the greatest communities in the whole wide world. And it was the first community in America founded and developed exclusively for African Americans to own land and build homes and create a loving community that still houses 6 churches that are over 100 years old. And the attendants of these churches are still the ancestors of the founders still attend these churches.
Wow. If our listeners are anything like me, they probably haven't heard about Orange Mound, or maybe this is the first time they've heard about Orange Mound. Tell us a little bit more about some of the people and some of the stories that are coming out of Orange Mound.
Oh, Orange Mound has so many great people. I can start right now thinking about Reverend McCargo, who lived on Whittington Street. Reverend McCargo was the pastor emeritus of Sale and Guilfield Church that was downtown at the time, Florida Street. And based on the great community relationship of neighbors, Reverend McCargo and his wife, Miss Selena, would take me to the church for plays. Charles Lloyd, the great saxophonist, is from Orange Mound. Dr. Alvin Crawford, a black pediatrics orthopedic doctor, is from Orange Mound. Dr. W.A. Bisson is from Orange Mound. The image of Aunt Jemima, the lady on the pancake box, her folks came from Orange Mound. The guy who played in our Soldier Story, his name just eludes me at this particular time, grew up on Hamilton, and he was from Orange Mound. Ralph Riley, one of the great writers and sportscasters for CBS, was from Orange Mound. Dr. W.A. Bisson was from Orange Mound. B.B. King stayed in Orange Mound when he first came up from Mississippi. Kirk Whalum and his family are from Orange Mound. The Rosses, who were a pharmacist, school teacher, and doctors, were from Orange Mound. All kinds of great people came from Orange Mound. Dr. W.A. Norsworthy, who is responsible for the integration of Glenview, the Glenview community, was a pastor emeritus, is one of the historical churches in Orange Mound, Mount Moriah CME Church. Oh, gosh, Barry Wilburn, the football player who was part of the Redskins, 22nd NFL, he's from Orange Mound. His dad is my contemporary. His dad and I was in the first grade together. Rochelle Stevens is from Orange Mound. The boxer, McKinney, I can't think of his first name right now. He's from Orange Mound. Honey, there are so many great people from Orange Mound.
Wow. This is Artivism on the Kazukian Network. Wow, you just listed so many people who are from Orange Mound, and many people have heard of those names. But one of the things I kept hearing in terms of a thread that linked a lot of these people was really the arts. Can you talk a little bit about how important the arts are and were in Orange Mound, Tennessee?
Honey, arts was always important. Orange Mound was one of the first communities in Memphis to have a state-of-the-art swimming pool, or playground as we called it. There was a state-of-the-art swimming pool and all kinds of activities. As a little girl going there, we had art teachers that we learned how to paint and draw. And one of the activities in the summertime when black kids couldn't go off to camp and all that stuff, we would go from church to church for the Orange Mound for daycare school, and we learned how to paint and draw. And art has always been an active part of it. When you talk about activism, some of our teachers, even at Melrose, would tell us to express our feelings through drawing and words rather than fight and do things that was destructive. So art and activism has always been a part of Orange Mound ever since I began school. And Crawford, a group of people who owned a Sundry store there on Carnes Avenue, when everybody on my end of the street started school, we had they gave us a wide line tablet and a pencil, and Mr. and Miss Crawford was telling us to either learn how to write our names or draw something.
This is Artivism, and we are talking to culture bearer Mary E. Mitchell. I'm so glad you mentioned art and activism. And, as you know, the name of this show is Artivism. And so I speak to people who work at the intersection of art and social activism. Can you tell me, what Artivism means to you?
Well, Artivism means that you can express your social discontent through things that are artistic. And that means if it's marching in a band and doing the twirl, or if it means like the Memphis mobilizers who started the activism during the sanitation strike and were supporters of Dr. Martin Luther King, who got together and who all of them could speak so powerfully, like speaking the spoken word. Some of them could recite poetry. It meant going in churches where people would put up banners and draw banners to participate in the march, and all of the things that came was part of the social change from segregated Memphis, where I grew up at.
Wow. Let's talk a little bit more about social activism. I know you have so many stories you can tell us about the civil rights movement, the sanitation workers strike. Can you think of some moments where art helped in terms of social activism? How was art a tool or an instrument during that time?
Well, one of the things that I think about as far as art is concerned, on Saturdays, we had the Push Saturdays here after Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination, and Push was at Reverend Kyle's church. And every Saturday, that's where most of the activist people attended church, because it was a combination of church service as well as activism. But in these services where we were always made aware of what was happening during the social change, it would be great musical artists there, it would be creative visual artists there, and all kinds of activities would happen at that church. The same with Claiborne Temple. When Dr. Martin Luther King would come and speak, people would bring their art and their craft there to show, to sell, and maybe to tell about in the community.
Wow. This is Artivism on the Kazukian Network. You're listening to the Artivism podcast on the Kazukian Network. This is Artivism, and we are talking to change agent and activist Mary E. Mitchell. So, Mary, let's talk a little bit more about what was going on in the civil rights movement and the ways that arts and culture really became your tool for social activism. You were talking about, I was really riveted by what you're talking about in terms of signs and music, and in the churches, really, they weren't just church services, they were really opportunities for people to learn more about social change. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, yes, under the inspiration of Reverend Billy Kyle, he was pastor of Monumental Baptist Church. So he was very much an activist and a leader in the community. As a matter of fact, he was on the balcony at the Lorraine Hotel when Dr. King was assassinated. And he chose to have services on Saturdays, even though he had his regular church service. But the Saturday service was like a church service, but it was really a social activist service. We had a person who played the xylophones. We had service. We had people who came from Chicago and all across the country to tell us about what was going on in the civil rights movement. Strategies was made there. Our ex-mayor, Mayor A.C. Horton and his wife, they were just pro bono lawyers there helping with all the kinds of things that took place during this particular time, because during that time, remember, people were going to jail, people were being targeted for this, that, and the other. So it was a lot of social unrest, but as well as great information. But the art part of it was the dancing, the singing, the visual arts and things that people brought there. And a lawyer from Orange Mound, Floyd Pete, he's now passed away. He was also one of the lawyers who was very active in getting people out of jail and being at push every Saturday.
So I know at the time you weren't thinking, oh, we're using art as a form of social activism. But I'm really interested in how that came about. What were you doing at that time? Were you involved? I know you like poetry. I know you like to write. What sort of forms of creativity were you using as your form of protest?
My voice is protesting. I was part of every protest movement that absolutely took place. And I would do some dancing whenever the occasion would arise. We have the W.C. Handy Theater in Orange Mound, and at that time, during that time, it was on the decline. But a lot of art activism would go on in that place. People would create shows, and people would be there to protest, as well as tell about all the things that would be going on as far as social change and how to participate. Marches took place. People made placards with marches, and they were artistically expressed. I would love to find some and show them to you sometime.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. This is Artivism on the Kazukian Network. Let's talk a little bit more about art in Orange Mound today. And what does it look like, art and activism today in Orange Mound? And we've been talking about during the civil rights movement how arts was really a major part of social activism and the civil rights movement. What are you seeing today, and how might it be different today, and how are some things actually the same?
Well, I can start now with myself. I'm a fellow, a 2016 Art Fellow from Arts Memphis, sponsored by Miss Steele and others. And as a result of that, I've traveled to Boston, I've traveled to Chicago, and heard many stories about places in New York that we plan to visit probably before early spring. And one of the things that I've seen an evolution of art and appreciation of what is art in our community, because before we were exposed to the Fellows program with Linda and others, we was just like other people who thought art was just paintings of visual art, maybe some expressions, maybe some sculptures or things like that. But what we have learned to realize and appreciate and promote is the great art of craftsmanship, the great art of storytelling, that these things are now art that we did so much a part of our community. So with now being an art fellow and being exposed for 80 years to the various aspects of the traditional arts, and then recognizing the great value of all the art that was done in our communities, piecing quilts like my grandmother and mothers did right at the Orange Mound Community Service Center. You can see women up to 95 years old creating ceramics and things like that. So the whole expression and Artivism now has a different meaning to me than it did when I was growing up.
Well, you're talking about the Art Fellows, and for our guests, it's actually a program where artists and residents and arts managers come together based in Memphis, Tennessee, and they get a chance to actually learn about how to use the arts as a tool for social change and social activism, and how arts can actually play a role in a neighborhood's revitalization. And so Miss Mitchell is actually one of the 14 2016 fellows who had a chance to go to Boston and Chicago, the South Side, to see the work of Theaster Gates and the Stony Island Arts Bank and the Arts Incubator, and really see how the arts can actually transform a neighborhood that's been disinvested. You're listening to Artivism, and we're talking to change agent, historian, and activist, Mary E. Mitchell. So we were talking about the Fellows and how that was a great experience for you in terms of really seeing, in two ways, seeing how arts can actually be a tool for change in your neighborhood, seeing an example of that in the South Side of Chicago, and then two, helped you to expand your definition of the arts. I mean, arts doesn't have to be just the symphony, classical music, or classical theater, or opera, or ballet. The arts can be so many other things. I'd love to hear a little bit more about Orange Mound and how Orange Mound is a creative community. We know it's a historic community, but talk a little bit about that creativity in the arts once we expand that definition of the arts.
One of the things with that question is that I feel so moved and so honored to be a part of the creative change in Orange Mound. My fellow colleagues, my fellows, we were an interracial group. So you can say that, but we are a loving group. I mean, we just bonded, and we just a loving group. So you can just say, just within that nuclear of our fellows program, racial animosity just sort of dissipated. And we shared so much in the process of going to Chicago and even in Boston. We shared together, and it was genuinely authentic love, and relationships. And as a result of that, we have just come together back in Memphis with our share out that's part of being a fellow. And we've just done phenomenal things. And based on my time, 80 years here, I haven't ever seen anything like the collaboration of my co-fellows who are white, and how we have expressed what we learned in art through share outs, through workshops, as well as in our travels.
And one of the things I know you guys have been talking about, we were just talking about it yesterday, is how your community specifically has assets like people who sew, or people who do hair, or people who are tailors, or students who like to perform hip hop and rap and spoken word. Can you speak to a little bit more about those assets in your community?
Yes, and with that, we have culinary artists. Mm-hmm. We have culinary artists that can create some of the great kinds of tasty relishes, as well as baked and cooked dishes that you ever wanted to see. But back to your original question, yes, we have craft people. We have people who make furniture. We have a man from Orange Mound that didn't even graduate from high school who designed and made cars. He all kinds of cars, and he's so shy now because his talents he felt like he's been duped, if you will, out of his talents. He even helped DeLorean build and gave instructions for his building of his car. We have people in Orange Mound who are so talented. We have gymnasts. We're very happy about the young lady Simone, who African American gymnast, who's just recognized. But I know people, even my contemporaries, who could flip and do all that stuff that she done today.
This is Artivism, and we're talking to Mary E. Mitchell. I think what is so fantastic is through this work of just really investigating and researching and understanding and broadening the definition of the arts, you really see these assets in neighborhoods like Orange Mound. You see assets like those individuals, like you were saying, who are craftsmen, who are knitters, who are seamstresses and tailors. Let's talk about the economic impact of those types of opportunities. I mean, what does that look like?
Well, at this particular time, Orange Mound's medium income is probably less than $20,000 per citizen there. Mm-hmm. But it certainly doesn't mean that is the value of their original artwork. The economic impact the economic reserve has not caught up with the talents. And the way that I think it can catch up, where these artists can be recognized and can receive the equity of what they really should be receiving, and what they just do so naturally, is through the right promotion and through such activities as Art Memphis and Art Up.
This is Artivism on the Kazukian Network. You're listening to Artivism. Artivism features conversations with artists, creatives, and citizens working at the intersection of art and social activism. And I'm Linda Steele, your host. I'm a grant maker, change maker, social venture capitalist, and I invest in individuals and projects that use the arts as a vehicle for social change.
I'm Mary E. Mitchell, historian for the historic Orange Mound community in Memphis, Tennessee, and you're listening to Artivism.
This is Artivism, and we are talking to historian, activist, and culture bearer Mary E. Mitchell. Now, Ms. Mitchell, we've been having this great conversation about arts and artivism and social activism, and we were talking about the current state of Orange Mound, the historic Orange Mound, where you said the median income is around $20,000 per household. But we were also talking about the possibilities of the arts as an economic engine in Orange Mound and how exciting that is. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Well, you see, we have two galleries in Orange Mound now. We're the only African-American community in Memphis that has its own art gallery. And through that gallery, with the various talents of all the artistic expressions that are in our community, the economic impact could change, in my opinion, within a year.
Wow.
That just with the fact that the right process is put in place, as our Linda Arts, Memphis Arts Up has guided us through, the economic impact could change, because everybody, with the exposure, with the promotion, with all of the strategies and all of the kinds of intellectual dynamics to art, then the artists could really make a living, and Memphis could be a great city for artistic expressions right in Orange Mound. We could be a tourist attraction because, number one, the talent is there, the gallery is there, and the people are there. And of course, we have one of our dear colleagues, another art fellow from Orange Mound, Miss Luella Marshall, who was motivated and innovated to create artistic trash receptacles that are beautiful, one-of-a-kind design that now are part of the Orange Mound landscape where people can put their trash. And that was just an original idea conceived by Miss Marshall.
Exactly. And for our listeners who may not be aware, the gallery is called OMG, Orange Mound Gallery. And it's incubating right now in this historic community. But there's an opportunity to create jobs there. They need people to program the space and to invite thought leaders to come in and do programs, to have screen filmings and showings, rehearsals, and other types of performances, as well as your traditional exhibitions of artists here in the historic Orange Mound community, as well as Memphis and really all over. So it's an opportunity to help artists, it's an opportunity to help residents, and really to get to community ownership. And the same can be said for Ms. Marshall's project, which using garbage cans and painting them actually is an opportunity to create jobs for artists as well as, residents of the neighborhood. So this is really what we're talking about, arts and culture becoming an economic engine in a neighborhood such as Orange Mound, and art addressing challenges like unemployment through job creation, blight, and crime. So any other projects you can think of that are addressing some other challenges that Orange Mound has right now, how arts and culture might be addressing another challenge in Orange Mound?
Well, I do want to say that as we move forward on what you're talking about, and this will certainly happen as we change the economic landscape of Orange Mound. Orange Mound is one of two communities in Memphis now that has received the Preserve America Award. We're the only one in Memphis that's honoring our African American heritage and culture. We are one of 12 communities in Tennessee and the only one that is celebrating our African American culture and heritage, and one of 900 in the nation. So that in itself should bring more artists, even those not from Orange Mound, but from across the country, to come and be a part of the Orange Mound artistic experience, as well as look forward to making a great income.
Exactly. Well, the Preserve America Community Award is a huge honor. It was bestowed upon the historic Orange Mound community by the White House and the First Lady, Michelle Obama. And we believe that there are plenty of opportunities that will come out of that award. I do believe that the arts can actually help address some of the challenges in Orange Mound, and that this work can actually be a model and create a lab for this type of work right here in Memphis, Tennessee. You're listening to Artivism on the Kazukian Network. This is Linda Steele, and I'm talking to Ms. Mary E. Mitchell, historian, activist, artivist, and change agent. And we're going to wrap up with our conversation today. And as we're wrapping up, I'm just thinking about a couple of things we've been talking about, the history of the historic Orange Mound community and how important it is in the nation, and your specific history with art and social activism. And I'm thinking that really it's kind of interesting how Orange Mound was the first in so many ways in terms of African Americans owning their own property. And now in 2017, we're looking at Orange Mound actually leading the way in terms of showing how communities can actually use the arts and culture to help in their renaissance and revitalization. And how does it feel for you to be a historian and understand about how Orange Mound was a trailblazer in 1890 and in terms of home ownership and business ownership, and now, you know, on the edge of something very new where Orange Mound is yet again a trailblazer, but this time using arts and culture in their renaissance. How does it feel to be involved in all of this?
It feels absolutely wonderful. I am just so honored to be a part of it. I say this to my friends, my colleague, Ms. Steele, and everybody who will listen to me every day, because it's just a great thing. It's an evolution. I tell Ms. Steele that what she has brought to the community as we move forward in this is like she is an archaeologist, a community archaeologist, and we have been inspired to excavate our rich jewels and gold that's in our soil, like some of the names that I mentioned. But it feels just great, and we can just see on the horizon, because we have accomplished so much in the past 3 years. Mm-hmm. So we can just see so much on the horizon, and with the trajectory being this forceful, well, my goodness, who knows what's going to be around February 2018 in Orange Mound.
And that's exactly when 2018 where we'll be commemorating some very important incidents in Memphis in terms of how far we've come in terms of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King and the sanitation workers strike. So this has all been a team effort, but we are all artists here. We're all artists, activists, artivists, change agents, really trying to use arts and culture as a tool to revitalize and renovate some of, at this point, the historic Orange Mound community and other communities around the nation. Thank you so much, Mary E. Mitchell, for your time.
Thank you, Linda. You're very welcome.
You will find find the Artivism podcast at the intersection of art and social activism. Artivism is executive produced by ArtUp, hosted by Linda Steele, produced, directed, and distributed by Kazukian.